All right, everyone, welcome back to the Golf Unfiltered podcast. I'm Adam. That's Dan. We're over at golfunfiltered.com. Be sure to follow us everywhere on social media at Golf Unfiltered. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see on the screen here our respective handles on x.com. Dan, how are you today, my friend?
Hanging in there. We got a Dolphins game tonight, so ask me again in a couple hours.
Yes, we got two Monday night games. I mean,
We do.
I'm never going to get used to two Monday night games. It's weird to me.
It is super weird. And not that it's necessarily such a bad thing. It's always good when we have more games, but if they're gonna start doing this whole two Monday nighters thing, maybe we could get like some staggered starts. Maybe
Yeah.
start one at like 7 and the other one at like 8:30. I don't know. Just that way we can have some time for themselves, and also so
Right.
that way both games aren't ending at like 1 a.m. local time.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you and I being fantasy football involved in that in our league, we've got two games that we have to watch, and
Yeah.
I believe that you said you had a little thing that you wanted to come clean about regarding your fantasy
Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Unfortunately, Nikki couldn't join us, so I couldn't do this to her face. But I'll eat the crow. Nikki was right. She said the day of our draft that I would never win anything this year with Jared Goff as my starting quarterback. And yesterday, I went into essentially it was not a winner take all match, but for me, I needed to win to have a shot at that last playoff spot. For anyone that watched the Lions game yesterday, we very much know that I did not win that game because of Jared Goff and the Lions offense. I had Goff, St. Brown, and Laporta yesterday. So basically, I was all in, and I was either going to go great or horribly wrong based solely on that Lions game. And not your Bears, but the Bears that play in
Well,
your area.
yeah.
It's funny. It's funny because you and I kept chatting and we kept looking at the live in-game Detroit money lines, and we kept saying so.
Yeah,
We just kept waiting for the Bears to bear,
I bet
and
it, and
instead
I
the
missed.
Lions. And instead of the Bears bearing the Lions. So yeah,
Yeah,
that did not go well yesterday. But that was just one of the uh, absurdities of yesterday. Nothing that happened yesterday, I feel like, made any sense. And not that Vegas needed more money, but I'm guessing that Vegas probably had one hell of a day yesterday because nothing made sense. Nothing went the way I think anyone thought it was supposed to go. We could do an entire show just on that play in the Chiefs game. By the
yeah, that
way,
was crazy.
if you're so offsides that the referees can't even see the ball, you're offsides. There's
Yeah,
no
sorry,
ifs,
bud.
ands, or buts about that. But
Yeah,
yeah, no,
that whole thing.
it was a
Just
crazy day
craziness.
yesterday. Nothing made any sense. Hopefully, for my sake, something goes back to normal tonight because if tonight goes the way yesterday did, that means that Tennessee is going to win, and obviously I don't want
No,
that to happen. But yeah,
same.
and then we have
No,
golf, right? So like golf
golf.
so
Yeah.
much less hectic right now.
Well, I don't know about less hectic, but yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
yesterday,
sarcastic, but yeah.
right. All I need is Waddle to do a few things tonight, and I'll be fine, I think. But yeah, I mean, you bring up golf, and oh man, Dan, we have so much we could talk about. And by now, listeners, you've probably heard your favorite, podcasts talking about the golf ball rollback as well as John Rahm going to live, and maybe we save the rollback talk today, Dan, for something else. But the biggest, most recent stories, and I don't think I'm overselling this when I say that the future of men's professional golf can be decided in the next couple of weeks. I mean, we've got the December 31st deadline coming up, where the proposed framework agreement is supposed to be finalized, whatever the heck that's going to look like. John Rahm, in the meantime, has left town. He's gone to live golf. And then late last night, you actually sent a text about this to our group where finally there's some traction, probably, pushed in the direction because of Rahm leaving by the PGA Tour and a investment group that has been put together. So there's a lot of stuff that's been happening in the last 24 hours.
And it's funny, I don't think there's anyone in this world who can compare financially to the Saudi investment fund. So I'm not even going to try to sit here and say, okay, they've done it. But however, if you're trying to get close, I think we got close last night. Some of the most powerful, richest men in this country
Mhm.
joining forces to whether it's buy a larger stake in whatever this new PGA Tour and Saudi group's going to be, or they're going to try to muscle the Saudis out. I don't know, but you've got the Ricketts family, the owner of the Cubs. You've
Hmm.
got Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons. You have Fenway Sports Group, who, by the way, they don't just own the Red Sox and the Penguins. They also own Liverpool, who's worth about a bajillion dollars on their own.
Right.
LeBron James is part of Fenway Sports Group. So, like, his name's not even specifically mentioned because he's part of that larger conglomerate along with the owner of the Red Sox, John Henry. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but you also have the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers. So,
Yep.
short of like Mark Cuban, which, he's selling the Mavericks. Maybe he's going to throw his name into this group at some point too. Maybe he's just trying to get the liquidation ready. But you want to talk about the who's who of influential and very wealthy businessmen in this country. I listed all those, and I listed the sports teams they own. That's just the sports teams they own. That's not their quote unquote
Right.
day jobs. Like Arthur Blank also, by the way, owns Home Depot. Like these
Yeah.
guys made their money in the private sector before they even bought their playthings in their sports teams. So, you're never going to compete with Saudi money. But the list of names that are on this group that are going to try to get involved, there's some firepower there. There's a lot of money there, and there
Yeah.
is some intrigue there because, like I said, are they going to just try to buy a seat at the table with the Saudis and with the PGA Tour as it exists now? Or are they going to try and essentially buy the Saudis seats and kick them out? In which
Right.
case, then clearly, obviously, not only is Liv going to continue to exist, but Liv will continue to probably get stronger because there are more guys that will say, okay, well, nothing's going to happen now. I might as well just go. And we've already seen the Tony Finau is reportedly going to go next to John with John
Yeah.
Rahm's team. So is Tyrell Hatton, I
Terrell
believe I saw
Hatton. Yeah.
as a
Hmm.
possible name, and that's just, and there's still one more name to fill out that team. There's also, by the way, a whole other team that hasn't even been formed yet because Liv said that they can still add one more team, which is another 4 guys. So,
Hmm.
and then also you had the 3 that just qualified for the league this year over the weekend in their promotions event too. So, we're not
Yeah.
done with Liv. I knew there had been rumblings that Fenway Sports Group, obviously, we knew that name. We knew they had been involved for a while in this, but when the list came out last night, you saw some of the other names that were in that group
Hmm.
along with Fenway Sports Group. I couldn't help but think to myself, those are some names, and there's a lot of money behind those names. So this just got even more interesting, as if it wasn't already interesting enough.
Yeah, the names involved, like you mentioned, I mean, they've got a ton of cash. They don't have Saudi public investment fund money, but that alone brings so many other questions to mind for me at least. And it's a matter of, all right, well, the mantra all along, or the understanding, has always been that you're not going to be able to compete with what money Live Golf is playing with. All right. But in the same token, it's a matter of, all right, do they have to? Because what the PGA Tour essentially has right now is the market. I mean, like we've joked about it, but it's still true. I can't even watch Live Golf in my area, and I am not in a small market. I live just a little outside of Chicago, so even if I wanted to, I couldn't
Your
watch John
market
Rahm, Brooks Koepka.
your market hosts, I don't know if they're going to this year, but your market the last 2 years hosted a live event, and the people that lived
Correct.
there, like they could have lived next to the place where it was being played at, and if they weren't on the property, they couldn't watch it. Like that's just
Exactly right.
that tells you all you need to know right there.
It's asinine, and it's one of the things, I guess, one of the bargaining chips that the PGA Tour still has, and so there is still value in the PGA Tour, and I feel like that's been lost a little bit among the crowd and everyone talking about this. Everyone's saying that the PGA Tour is dead. The PGA Tour is dead. PGA Tour is still alive, and for all intents and purposes, well, it's just everything that's going on behind the scenes, especially if we believe what the SI.com article mentioned, where Patrick Cantlay is basically the person running the show now. I mean, who's to say what's going on behind closed doors at the leadership level? All of that to the side, the PGA Tour is still a viable product, right?
You would have to think so. Also, just side note, guy can't put a hat on, but now he's running the show.
Right.
Like, God help us
Yeah.
all.
I don't know.
If that is in fact true, obviously Jordan Spieth said there's no truth to that. But what do you expect him to say? Because it's got to be embarrassing if that's really the case. But no, there's still viability there. regardless of the Saudis' involvement, it makes sense that you're going to need an influx of cash, and you're going to need a large influx of cash, and you're going to need it quickly. And who better to be able to provide that large influx of cash than owners of other professional sports teams that literally are just constantly have cash flow going in and out. And they also own things that they can go ahead and use to go to banks and get even more money if they need to, because obviously they have very, very equitable things that they can use. We've been seeing stories coming out in the last few weeks. Obviously, purses are increasing across the board, even more so for elevated events. Right as of right now, that increase in money is falling on the sponsors, and
Right.
we have seen sponsors be very annoyed. We've also seen several sponsors just say, you know what, we're out.
We're
Honda,
done.
the
Yeah.
longest sponsor in tour history, did that for the event down here. Obviously, they've already got a new sponsor now in Cognizant. Wells Fargo is no longer going to be the sponsor of the Wells Fargo Championship, so that's going to need a whole nother name. And for those tournaments that have not backed out and are still playing ball, we've heard from a lot of tournament directors and, you know, kind of heads of these companies or sponsors saying, okay, well, if we're going to have to give you more money, then that means less money for the charities. And I thought that's the whole point of this thing, is we're supposed to be a charitable 501c3. It's supposed to be all about the charities, charity, charity, charity. And so if more money is going to have to go into operating costs and less money is going into charity, then that kind of defeats the purpose of the bottom line of the PGA Tour as it currently exists. Now, obviously, that's probably a big reason, too, why the tour is creating this new arm or whatever that's going to be the for-profit side, because it's kind of tough to still claim to be a nonprofit if you're now demanding reimbursement of the profits.
Right.
You know, so it's interesting. It's clear that more money is needed. It's clear that the tour threw all this money at these guys to try to keep them from going to live without a clear plan in place of how they were going to pay for it all. And so if anything, this group led by the Fenway Sports Group now kind of makes it more clear as where exactly the money's going to come from for them to pay for all this now. I would assume, at least.
Yeah, I would too. And what I don't quite understand yet, and I don't know if anyone really has an answer to this, is how sponsors for the players themselves are going to continue in this. Because if you look at it from their perspective, actually on both sides of that coin, if you're a player like John Rahm, you just got a huge payday, either in equity or a combination of equity and cash, whatever. You don't necessarily need sponsor money anymore. But on the other side, if you're a sponsor like Callaway, for example, your player isn't being seen by as many eyeballs anymore because the markets just don't cover or carry live golf right now today. So it's almost like, what's the ROI on your side as well for sponsoring a player? And then it just becomes, you can go down a rabbit hole asking questions like that. I think it's safe to say, though, that no matter where we end up, it's going to look significantly different than where we've been for the last however many years in pro golf, at least on the men's side.
Yeah, and we've already seen examples of that on both sides with Liv. For as of right now, Callaway is stating that they're going to stick with Rahm. Obviously, Nike stuck with Brooks. But we've also seen on the flip side of that, Adidas, I believe, dropped DJ. I know they dropped Sergio.
They dropped everyone.
They dropped all the Liv guys. Puma,
yeah.
obviously, and Cobra obviously did not. Now that contract happened to already be coming up to begin with, but they obviously did not renew with Bryson. Phil
Strick's
lost.
still with Brooks. Yep.
Yeah, but I think Phil. Well, now Phil's in a whole different ball game because his comments too. But I think everyone basically got rid of Phil at that point. So we've seen examples of sponsors leaving, and then we've seen examples of them saying, "Okay, we'll stick around for now." Now, the Nike thing is interesting in its own right because it would appear that they're going to just no longer exist here soon. So I think that one will just kind of take care of itself in a weird way. Yeah. I think
it's a tough spot
summed it up. You summed it up perfectly, though. I think that for a lot, I don't know for sure. I would have to assume if it were me, the reason why I would be wanting, in the case of Rahm, $300 million, even if it's not all in cash, is because there's got to be, even if it doesn't actually happen, you've got to go into that with some level of assumption that, okay, I'm going to lose some money here because there is going to be sponsors that are either going to A, drop me completely, B, want to restructure my contract, because basically I'm only going to get seen 4 times a year.
Mhm.
And so there's going to be financial loss. So obviously I would have to assume the same thing on the Saudi side. Their selling point to these golfers has got to be, okay, yeah, you may lose some sponsorship money, but here's cash that you would have made from them anyway, with the
Right.
promise of more cash from these guaranteed no cut events. But yeah, it doesn't make a ton of. I don't want to say it doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but I think one of the things too that people also have to understand, and yes, these guys have so much money, it's stupid. It's not like we need to feel sorry for them from a financial perspective, but
Mhm.
part of these sponsorships is they get all their equipment for free. And beyond just that, they get
Sure.
to like custom make their clubs. So like we can get fitted to an extent as the general
Mhm.
public. What they get fitted, like their fittings are so much more extreme than ours are. And so if you're no
Mhm.
longer being repped by a club OEM anymore, in theory, you're going out and you're having to buy your own stuff. Now, once again, they have so much money. It's not like it's whatever, but I would have to imagine that that's got to be for a professional golfer that you're so used to your equipment and you're so used to things being made a certain way for you. And if then you've got to change that, it's got to be tough regardless of the money involved, because now all of a sudden you got to figure out, okay, well, what clubs do I want to play? Do I want to keep using these? If I break my 7-iron tomorrow now, though, I can't just go call somebody and get another free one. I've got to go figure
Right.
out a way to get it fitted, break it, all those things that kind of, I think a lot of it just goes without saying when you have these club
Mhm.
deals. And so, once again, though, $300 million. Okay, I'm sure you can figure it out.
Well, yeah. Well, and we even hear stories of, for some of the lesser known players on any tour, they send the caddy out to PGA Tour
Yeah,
Superstore and they have to go
yeah,
pick
yeah.
up a putter. It happens. Which is interesting when
Also owned by Arthur Blank, by the way. Speaking
there you
of,
go. There you go. Well, and it's interesting too because you raise up a good point. We're about the equipment side of the game too. I mean, so a lot of these player contracts, when they sign, we've talked about this before, when they sign on with a brand, there are clauses in many of these contracts that the player, in order to be a representative of the brand, has to maintain a certain world golf ranking. We don't have world golf ranking points for these live players at right now. Now, Live's attempt, what their strategy is right now, rather, it's not an attempt, they're actually doing it. Their strategy is to try to put pressure on the world golf ranking for many reasons. One, for these players to get into the majors more easily, but also for the equipment contracts because these players have clauses that they have to maintain a certain ranking. So, I mean, this is an obvious question, Dan, but Rahm's signing was clearly a huge strategic win for Live Golf. You've already mentioned and we've heard rumors of Tony Finau, who's pretty much it's almost confirmed that he's going. Terrell Hatton, a lot of people are saying the same. I mean, what's another big name that you feel would be another huge strategic win that is actually realistic? They're not going to get Tiger. They're not going to get Rory, but who could Live also be targeting right now?
I'm not going to take credit for this, but a name was floated as answering, or when that question was brought up over the weekend on Twitter, and it really got me thinking. And I'm like, oh man, that could actually happen. And oh boy, if it did, Victor Hovland.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow.
That would be a oh boy moment too, because I mean, that is probably the next big name in golf, and he's already there to an
Yeah.
extent. But as far as the next name that could get to that next stratosphere, so to say, you have to believe would be Victor Hovland. Going back to really quick to what you're saying about trying to figure out ways to get around the world golf ranking, I think we've also seen it here in these last few weeks. I saw um, this morning in a delayed end of the tournament. I believe Louis Oosthuizen, I believe, won the Alfred
I don't even know.
Dunhill link sort of. Yeah, but if it wasn't him, it was a live golfer, and so I saw that 4 of the last 5 DP World Tour events have been to start this new season have been won by live golfers. So it appears that
Hmm.
they are, though the non-Americans, it would appear, are being allowed back in the DP World Tour. We know that we saw the likes of Patrick Reed and others last year show up at Asian Tour events. Those tours do still offer world golf ranking points, so they are already circumventing the system by essentially going and playing on other tours that are allowing them to. Now, granted,
Mhm.
the Asian Tour and the DP World Tour don't quite allow or don't offer the number of world ranking points per event that, the average PGA Tour event does, but it's still better than nothing. And when you're just when you've reached a certain depth on that world golf ranking list, when you drop below, I think it's 200 ever, like 10 points can shoot you up like 500. Like Tiger got like what 15 points or whatever for the hero, or I don't know how many points.
He got like two. He got like 2 points, and he shot up.
And that shot him up like 400 spots.
Right.
So like once you drop below a certain level, like a point will shoot you significantly higher up. Now, obviously, to crack that top 50, you need a lot more points. But I mean, for some of these guys, a win on a DP World Tour event might get him enough to get him back in the top 100, say. And at that point, they may be able to then fulfill some of their contractual obligations, depending on what different tier levels they may be required to be at.
Yeah, well, and it's just real quick to go back, I found this. Here's the final leaderboard
there it
from
is. Louis,
Dale for Dunhill. Yeah, Louis and then Charles.
Schwartzel.
I mean, 1-2. And so they are obviously they're still good players. I mean, they're in comparison to the other PGA Tour pros, they're not the best, but Victor Hovland would certainly be a name that would just completely turn the tides on all of this. I mean, I think so when we say something like, the world of men's pro golf could change within the next 2 weeks. I mean, that is not hyperbole. I mean, that very well could be the case. And I think it's going to be interesting how the ripple effect kind of follows all that, because as many people have said, and I kind of agree with, pro golf, let's just call it what it is, Dan. Men's pro golf is the where all the eyeballs are in the world of golf. I mean, LPGA Tour is certainly gaining in popularity. I love it. I know you do as well as Nikki, of course. But that's where all the eyeballs go. And that's therefore where all the money's going to go for the majority of players. Now, whether or not the pro side of the game directly influences the game that you and I play, I don't know. I think the verdict is still out on that. But what I have seen is that there's a lot of people, even in my close golf circle, are saying, you know what? I'm done watching pro golf. I'll watch the majors, but anything else, I'm done with it. I mean, I'm sure you're hearing the same.
I'm not just hearing the same. I think I'm in that group now. And I know that's probably weird for some people to hear, considering the fact that we are on a podcast called Golf Unfiltered. Folks, it's really tough for me to care right now about anything that's not the majors. And we haven't even hit the majors yet, so it's tough to even say I care about the major. I mean, it'll be tough not to watch the majors just because, they're the majors. Also, Tiger is going to play in them this year. Fingers crossed, as long as he stays healthy. But yeah, it's just when you have a bunch of multimillionaires complaining about the fact that they're not hundreds of millionaires, it's really tough to get behind that one. And that's not to say that we don't see that in other sports, but it's not like this. And I will say too, when we see this happening in other sports, it's because these other leagues have the money to pay the players more, and they're not doing it. In this case, the leagues, or in this case, the league, does not have the money to pay these guys more, and they're still demanding more. Like, okay, think about this one for a minute. Golf is an incredibly niche sport. I know that in our little world of sicko golf Twitter, it may feel like the be-all, end-all, but like in the general scheme of life, golf is such a niche sport, even at the professional level. Jon Rahm just made $300 million this week. That's more than the career earnings of some of your favorite athletes. Like Shohei Ohtani got $700 million this week. Like, but for 10 years, Jon Rahm got $300 for probably 3 years. So that means Jon Rahm and Shohei Ohtani this year are going to make the exact same amount of money, like just from salary, not from anything else, just from their salary. Major League Baseball as an entity is worth like billions and billions of dollars, and the professional golf is not.
No.
So like, where does it end? Because it's not sustainable. There's no money there. Like the money's not there for. the money's not there for in the first place. Look no further than the fact that listen to the names that I listed off at the beginning in the episode that had to all come together to pool their money just to figure out
Mhm.
how they're going to be able to afford to keep the PGA Tour alive, basically, at this point. Like, and
Yeah.
also, once again, those are all owners of professional sports teams in leagues that are worth billion. I mean,
Yeah. They've
the
made their
the
money
the
already.
the 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 cheapest team to buy right now in Major League Baseball is probably the Marlins, and they sold for $1.2 billion when Bruce Sherman bought them, and that's probably
Yep.
the poorest team. And so it's just I think a lot of people are trying to compare golf to these other sports. You can't. There's not golf is
You
a. I
can't do it.
mean,
No.
golf. Adam, you were joking about this the other day. Golf's like one step above fishing, and fishing's never on TV. And no, and
Right.
professional fishermen don't make any money. And now John Rahm's going to make $300 million this year before he even hits a shot. Like, well, not this year, but he's going to make what
Yeah.
$100 million this year before he hits a shot. Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just
Right.
like, what are we doing?
The absurdity of it is really where I kind of get lost in the whole thing. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's so absurd. There's John Rahm is not on TV commercials selling me things like Christian McCaffrey. My wife and I were joking yesterday because like Christian McCaffrey, pretty just regular looking dude. He's not someone that I will admit, I probably wouldn't recognize him right away if he walked into my grocery store, but he's still on TV selling me things. I forget what commercial it was. John Rahm's not doing that, nor do I think that John Rahm could do that.
This is not a knock on her at all because Adam, you're a big fan of hers too. So I don't think there's
Sure.
I see Caitlin Clark on TV more than I see
Right.
John Rahm on TV. Like, and I'm just talking
100%.
commercials. Like, I'm not even talking about, and you know what? This year she's going to be on TV for playing her sport more than John Rahm will be too, because John Rahm's going to be on the CW on a random Saturday. And every one
Good
of
point.
Iowa's games this year is on that has been on ESPN or, national TV that everybody gets. So like, and once again, that's, I'm not knocking her and she's probably one of, if not the greatest female athlete that we currently have out there. And she's still in college.
Right.
But like, yeah, so you even look at somebody like that, and I bet you the average run-of-the-mill sports fan would not be able to pick her out of a lineup either. But she's on TV more than Rahm is now too, and she's obviously making a fraction of what he is, and that has nothing to do with the fact that she's a woman. It's just because the fact that $300 million is an obscene, ridiculous amount of money.
And that's where it comes to the part of it all for me. Like it's just
that's what I'm saying. How can
right
can you enjoy following that at this point? Like, how can you
You can't.
enjoy the day in and day
No.
out of watching these guys when it's like all they're thinking in the back of their heads is like, oh, well, who am I going to fight with today about more money? Like, get over it. I don't know.
And to his credit too, I mean, KVV over at No Laying Up, he wrote a really nice piece the other day talking about essentially how fans don't matter right now in pro golf. I would encourage everyone to go read it. You probably already have if you're in this small golf space, but the Rahm signing, even in his Letterman jacket on Fox News, because it had to be Fox News, of course. It is such a disconnect from reality as far as like these are make-believe numbers that these guys, and it's not just Rahm, it's everyone up to this point. It's make-believe numbers in more ways than one. You and I have talked about this. John Rahm is not getting $300 million in a briefcase right now. He's getting some.
And he's getting equity in his team. And you want to know how much that equity in his team is worth at this exact moment?
$0.
Zero.
Yeah.
Sorry, for those of you listening to it, zero. Because nobody has paid for these teams. Like, there is no indication that anyone is wanting to pay for stakes in these teams. There's no indication that there's any real sponsorship interest to sponsor these teams. So for right now, that whatever percentage equity John Rahm has in his team is worth exactly $0. And so it's just all the more proof and reason that all of this, it's monopoly money at this point. It really
is.
It's been out and short of the actual cash in their hands that they got, which we don't know how much any of these guys got in actual cash. The only amount of money we know they have in cash are their purses money that they win. But short of the cash in their hands, everything else is it might as well be Bitcoin or anything, monopoly money. It might as well be, a piece of paper. Like it literally has no intrinsic monetary value at this exact moment. Now, of course, like everything in life, that could change. But as of right now, this second, it's worth literally nothing.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting how this all plays out. I mean, frankly, it's not going to impact what we do here at Golf Unfiltered. I mean, we may talk about different topics moving forward, but if you've listened to this for any length of time, you guys know that we hit all sorts of fields. It's an interesting thing as a golf fan. And I'm just speaking purely, not as someone who owns a website, but more so like, look, you and I, we like watching the game. We like watching the big tournaments, certainly the majors. We like going out and playing every so often, but it has just gotten to a point, at least for me, and I don't know how you feel, but it's gotten to a point where I don't even want to turn the TV on to watch these tournaments. Like, I could care less. I would much rather go play golf and maybe catch a score update so I could talk about it on this show, than actually watch. There's no way I'm watching 4 rounds of this stuff.
Yeah, but we know that golf is still sustainable without it, because we know that everyone's still playing it, and like you and I are going to be at the PGA show next month. From all indications we've received, like there's going to be a record number of people going to the PGA show next month. Those people are not PGA Tour pros; they're professionals, yeah, but like they are the ones who teach us. So if there is still that great of a demand in 2023, when we've seen that it could go virtual and still be successful, and there's still that big of a demand for everyone to get on planes and pull out their quarter zips and converge in Orlando for a couple days, like obviously the health of the game of golf as a whole is still there. And like you like to mention plenty, and it's true. Men's professional golf is not a representation of the game of golf. The game of golf is the representatives of the game of golf are you and I and people like us. And those of us who we go to the PGA Tour Superstore because we need to buy that new 7-iron, and we go out on our local munis on a Saturday and with our friends, and maybe we have some music playing in our carts while we're playing, and we just go out there and we have our fun. And so that really is what is going to continue to keep sustaining this game, because I think that, and I don't know if I would have said this 20 years ago, and once again, I think that Tiger did this, but if the PGA Tour shut down tomorrow and there was no longer any longer men's professional golf, I still think the majority of those of us that play golf would continue to go out and keep playing golf on the weekends. And that's a testament to Tiger, because I think that pre-Tiger, had the PGA Tour shut down, I think that golf probably would not have been able to be sustained on the amateur side of things. But that generation of people that like us, that Tiger made us fall in love with the game. Like, and you said, like, I don't care about the PGA Tour anymore. So I'm going to, what they do is not going to influence whether or not I keep playing the game. What's going to influence if I keep playing the game is the fact that all the Northeasterners are down here clogging the courses up right now, and the prices are higher. So I stay off of them until they go back up north and my courses are open, wide open again. But short of that, nothing's really going to stop me from playing. So as long as we keep playing, because once again, like I brought too, the pro golfers aren't paying for their equipment, their balls, anything. The reason why these companies stay in business is because we buy the clubs and we buy the balls and we buy the all. So like, I'm going to keep buying clubs and balls, and you're going to keep buying clubs and balls, and we're going to keep the golf world in business. Not literally you and I, but us, the regular.
We'll do our damnedest. Yeah, we'll try our hardest to do it. And speaking of golf balls, we're powered by Bridgestone Golf, our good partners over there. I just want to throw that out there as well. Great golf balls for sure.
Love Bridgestone.
And by the way, yeah, absolutely. And for the record too, they've been extremely, everyone, just to touch on the rollback thing really quickly. A lot of brands have come out and they've issued their statements, their prepared graphics that they put on social media. Bridgestone, for the longest time, and I've said this a few times, they've always been supportive of whatever the governing bodies want to do to protect the game. And while, people may disagree on whether or not you and I should be impacted by anything regarding the rollback, they're going to continue to do what they do best, which is make the best golf balls in the business. So kudos to them for taking that very mature approach, I will say, compared to some other brands. You know what I'm talking about. So kudos to them. At any rate, Yeah, well, you mentioned the PGA merchandise show. We are planning on going next month. I think you and I need to do everything we can to not wear quarter zips. Like that's
Yeah.
the rule. We can't wear
Well,
quarter zips.
you know what we could do instead? We could get ourselves some Letterman jackets and show up in some
Oh,
GU
we should do
jackets.
that. We should do that. Absolutely. We'll have to work that into the budget here. I'm sure we can make that
Uh,
happen. All right, Dan. Well, we're up against the clock here. We've talked a lot about the news from the last few days. There's going to be more stuff that's breaking, folks. So I'm sure that Dan and I and Nikki hopefully will be able to hop on, talk about whatever breaks, because who knows? We may hear in a week that the investment group has made the deal. I don't know, Dan, but it's been an exciting time. Glad you were able to hop
for
on.
all we know, by the time this comes out, 7 more people might have gone to live too. So you never know.
That's true too. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? All right, folks. Well, be sure to hit us up. Where's my mouse? Be sure to hit us up on Golf Unfiltered all over social media, and hit us up on YouTube here. Subscribe to our channel so you can catch all these updates. Dan, thanks for hopping on.